There is no fantasy character I dislike more than Elden Ring's Godwyn the Golden. Not for anything he does in Elden Ring or what he represents as a character, but because how a total misunderstanding of who he was and when he lived has almost completely derailed discussing Elden Ring. And my biggest problem with Godwyn the Golden is this statue. Because contrary to very popular belief, this statue does not depict Godwyn. It shows somebody else. So in order to prove this statue isn't Godwyn, we have to prove who it is. It all started way back when, with my hit video, What Everyone Gets Wrong About Elden Ring. I wanted to clear up the timeline by asking a question. Who was Elden Lord when the Night of the Black Knives occurred? The event where destined death is stolen, and Godwyn, among other demigods, died. Was it Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, or Radagon, the second Elden Lord? Common consensus is when Radagon was Elden Lord, because the story trailer, narrated by the person who orchestrated the assassination, makes it sound like that maybe the events happened one after the other. When it comes to analyzing Elden Ring, we have to ask three very important questions. Where is the information coming from? When do we learn this information? And what exactly was the information? For this, we are getting the information is coming from Ranni the Witch, who orchestrated the Night of the Black Knives, and has her own ending in the game. We learned this before the game came out, before anyone had a chance to play it and learn anything new about these events. And what exactly is this information? She says, it happened an age ago, but when I recall it, I see it true. Okay, so Ranni recalls it and she sees it true. It's true to her. On a night of wintry fog, the rune of death was stolen, and the demigods began to fall, starting with Godwyn the Golden. Queen Marika was driven to the brink. The shattering ensued, a war that was wrought only darkness. The Elden Ring was broken, but by whom and why? What could the demigods ever hope to win by warring? Okay, so Ranni knows what's going on in Marika's head, but she doesn't know who broke the Elden Ring or why it was broken. Something's very fishy about how she is recounting this tale, especially when we look at the end of the trailer, where she says, and so we inhabit a fractured world, awaiting the arrival of the Elden Lord. Then she looks directly into the camera and says, unless, of course, thou shouldst take the crown. So she's telling a story, and if you look at the trailer, it says the storyteller speaks. This character, Ranni the Witch, who orchestrated the assassination, is talking directly to the audience by looking directly at the camera and trying to entice you to play Elden Ring. And when you play Elden Ring, the game pushes you to do her ending and her story. Before we continue with what we learn when we actually play the video game, we have to recognize that Elden Ring is a very complex story that requires very careful reading to parse. The game has been out for over 3 years at this point, and it's okay if people made mistakes when trying to understand the story and the lore, especially when there's deadlines with sponsorships and you have to get your videos out very quickly. My goal is to highlight how much political intrigue is in Elden Ring's story, and perhaps, moving forward, we can all enjoy this wonderful piece of art together. Let's start with Rogier. So, Rogier is found in Stormveil Castle, and he is looking for some information on the Night of the Black Knives. Rogier is a very interesting character, because when you first meet Rogier, he will sell ashes of war that are tied to Caria. How does this guy know how to do spinning weapon, which was taught to Carian princesses? How does he know Carian greatsword? Very fishy, Rogier, very fishy. But after you find Godwyn's mangled cadaver underneath Stormveil Castle, he'll say, the misshapen corpse under Stormveil, that is a sacred relic of the Black Knives plot, as that famed night of assassination is known. It happened during the golden age of the Erdtree, long before the shattering of the Elden Ring. Someone stole a fragment of the Rune of Death from Malekith the Black Blade, and on a bitter night, murdered Godwyn the Golden, and it became the catalyst. Soon, the Elden Ring was smashed, and thus sprang forth the war known as the Shattering. So comparing this to Ranni's story trailer, where she makes it sound like Godwyn is killed, Marika's driven to the brink, and then we have the Shattering. Now we get a little bit more detail. It happened during the golden age of the Erdtree, long before the shattering of the Elden Ring, but it has a causal relation. Because Godwyn the Golden died in the Night of Black Knives, we get the Shattering War. Doesn't have to happen in the same week. Doesn't have to happen in the same year. It could have been a 20-year time span. It could have been 100 years. But because of the Night of Black Knives, everything afterwards can trace its origins to that point. And that origins was during the Golden Age of the Erdtree. So when was the Age of the Erdtree? If we go to the first Church of Marika on the mountaintops of the Giants, we'll get an echo of Marika from Melina, and she will say, "Hark, brave warriors, hark, my lord Godfrey, we commend your deeds. Guidance hath delivered ye through each ordeal. To the place ye stand, put the giants to the sword, and confine the flame atop the mount. Let a new epoch begin, an epoch glistening with life. Brandish the Elden Ring for the Age of the Erdtree." And then if we look at Godfrey's crown, the Age of the Erdtree began amongst conflict, when Godfrey was lord of the battlefield. So the Age of the Erdtree begins with Godfrey and Marika going against the fire giants. That is the beginning of the Age of the Erdtree. So the Night of the Black Knives has to happen after Godfrey becomes Elden Lord. What does the Age of the Erdtree look like? Well, we can look at the icon shield, which shows a tree with gold sap dripping from it, great shield painted with a divine scene, the recipient of a blessed tear from the Erdtree, an item that looks back fondly on the Age of Plenty. The divine scene acts in and of itself as a sacred invocation and gradually restores the carrier's HP. So if we're thinking Golden Age of the Erdtree, now we have this Age of Plenty. What is the Age of Plenty? Well, we can just think it's the Age of the Erdtree when we're getting the sacred tears coming from the Erdtree, because it can gradually restore people's HP, makes people stronger. We can also look at the Blessed Dew Talisman. So now we see from the icon shield, sap dripping down from the tree going into a chalice. Blessed Dew Talisman. Talisman depicting an Erdtree sap blessed boon. This is also pretty funny. It's a Blessed Dew Talisman, but it's depicting Erdtree sap. That will be important, not in this video. It was once thought that the blessed sap of the Erdtree would drip from the boughs forever, but that Age of Plenty swiftly came to a close, and with time, the Erdtree became more of an object of faith. Now we have, when would the Age of Plenty end? When there's no more dew or sap coming from the Erdtree. We're ending this golden age when the Erdtree is just an object of faith. It's something to be worshipped. It's not an actual tool that can be used for a city, for an army, for individuals. Next, we have the sacred tears. This is the chalice with the dew inside of it. We see the divine act of the tear coming from the tree, then the tear going into the chalice, and now we have the chalice. Blessing of the Erdtree, worshipped in the churches of all lands, this is but a faint vestige. During the Age of the Erdtree, these tears were used to spread the faith, for theirs was once a certain blessing. So during the Age of the Erdtree, during this Age of Plenty, where tears are coming from the Erdtree, they're putting them in chalices and then they're bringing them all across the lands between so people can partake in this communion and this baptism. Not communion, just baptism. Communion is dragons. So people can partake in this baptism. We know it's a baptism because in the Weeping Peninsula we got the baptismal church. So who is giving out these blessings? Where do these tears come from? We look at Erdtree's favor. And Erdtree's favor shows Marika with her one braid as the tree. Marika is the Erdtree here, and she's pouring out the tears. It is said that when the Age of the Erdtree began, such blessings were personally bestowed upon the recipients by Queen Marika herself. So the Erdtree, the Age of the Erdtree, begins with fighting the fire giants and fighting all these people beginning amongst conflict. And Marika is personally bestowing the power of the Erdtree onto people to invigorate them to fight her enemies. One of those people would be Godfrey. In the Shadow Keep, we can get the Talisman of Lord's Bestower, a talisman depicting Godfrey, first Elden Lord, receiving the precious sap. The Lord accepted the sap stoically, without any sign of wavering. No wonder the Lord of the Erdtree casts a long shadow over the land. So if we're thinking, the Night of the Black Knives occurred during the Golden Age of the Erdtree, this should be the time when dew and sap is plentiful, it's coming from the Erdtree, people are receiving it, people are getting its blessing. Marika is personally bestowing onto people, and who does she bestow it on? Her Lord of the Erdtree, Godfrey. So just from Roger's lines, we should be able to deduce that the Night of the Black Knives happened when Godfrey was the Elden Lord. Take it a step further. We look at our amber medallions. Our amber medallions are inlaid with old Erdtree sap, and they were treasured as the most precious jewels in the age of Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. So the Erdtree is producing sap. It's becoming amber, and now it's wonderful. We love these things. It's boosting our HP, it's boosting our stamina, it's boosting our mind. It's phenomenal. The best of these medallions, of the largest variety, were conferred to Godwyn's inner circle of distinguished golden knights. So during the golden age of the Erdtree, this age of plenty, Godwyn is getting the biggest medallions and is giving them to his knights. We're seeing this all together. He's not giving these out during the age of Radagon. He's giving them out during the age of Godfrey. So we look at our Blessed Dew Talisman again, and it says that the age of plenty swiftly came to a close. With time, the Erdtree became more of an object of faith. So what could have ended the age of the Erdtree? Well, let's think about what happens during the Night of Black Knives. If we look at the Assassin's Crimson Dagger, the charm is modeled after the darkly gleaming blades used in the Night of Black Knives, those which gave the demigods their first taste of death. Now, this is important. It says demigods, multiple. If we look at Godrick's Great Rune, we learn that the first demigods were the Elden Lord Godfrey and his offspring, the Golden Lineage. So early in the game, very early in the game, as soon as you get the Assassin's Crimson Dagger, which you can get in Limgrave, then you get Godrick's Great Rune, in your head, you should start thinking, okay, so the demigods are Godfrey and his children. Godfrey is a demigod, his children are a demigod. But then we learn more information as the game goes on. Demigod means two different things. It means different things to different people depending on how much they know. As the player, we get to gain almost all of the information possible that is in Elden Ring. So we have a bird's eye view of what's going on. The people within the lands between, the people who live inside of the story, they do not have that privilege. If we look at Radagon's Great Rune, so this would be while we get to Caelid. So we've already gone through Liurnia, we finished Limgrave, now we're in Caelid. We learn that Radagon was amongst the children of Rennala and Radagon, who became demigod stepchildren after Radagon's union with Queen Marika. So here we're getting demigods to the lands between, to the wider world, is when people are part of Marika's royal family. These are people who married to the god queen. If you are married into her family, you are a demigod. So Godfrey doesn't have to be her child. Just because he's her husband, he apparently gets to be a demigod. Radagon, he's not a demigod until his father marries Marika. But we know that's not true. We know that's not true. Enya tells us after we get our first Great Rune, the Great Runes are the stuff of demigods, the children of the goddess Queen Marika, she who is the vessel of the Elden Ring. The demigods are each and all direct offspring of Queen Marika. Godrick the Grafted was but a distant relation, the runt of the litter, his divine blood sorely diluted. And in the introduction cutscene, we get, soon Marika's offspring, demigods all, claimed shards of the Elden Ring. So it's more specifically, in reality, it is the children of Marika who are demigods, or their offspring, just anyone in her bloodline. We know, since Radagon is Marika, Radahn, Rykard, and Ranni were always demigods, but to the lands between, they don't know that. So when we think about, in the Night of the Black Knives, when the demigods first taste death, and the first demigods were the Elden Lord Godfrey and his offspring, the Golden Lineage, not only is Godwyn the first demigod to be killed, but everyone else in the Golden Lineage is getting killed as well. So the only people left behind are people like Godrick and Godfrey and Godfrey. When we defeat Godfrey as Hoarah, we don't get demigod felled, we get legend felled. And we learn from his remembrance that Godfrey divested himself of kinship, becoming a simple warrior once more. So Godfrey was never a demigod, he was nothing anything special, he's just a simple warrior. It's not like when we defeat Mesmer, who doesn't have a Great Rune, but we get demigod felled. We know he's a child of Marika. So it's important to recognize that people in the lands between, people in the story, have opinions that are dictated by how much they know about the world. If they don't know as much as we know, then we can't trust with 100% certainty that their information is completely accurate. We have to look at who is telling us this information. Where is it coming from? So when we go down to the bottom of Stormveil Castle, we can get the Prince of Death's pustule. It is said that the pustule came from the visage of the Prince of Death, he who used to be called Godwyn. As the first dead of the demigods, it is said he is buried deep beneath the capital at the Erdtree's roots. So Godwyn is the first demigod to die. Then we get the rest of the golden lineages getting killed. After Godwyn is buried into the roots, we get Deathroot. On the night of the dire plot, the stolen rune of death enabled the first death of the demigod. Later, the rune of death spread across the lands between through the underground roots of the Great Tree, sprouting in the form of Deathroot. What happens when Deathroot spreads? We look at our skeletal bandit ashes. After the night of the plot, Deathroot appeared in lands between, and those who live in death soon followed. So we're trying to think, how could we get the end of the golden age of the Erdtree? Godwyn is killed. He's buried into the roots. The rune of death in his body starts spreading through the roots, and it creates Deathroot. If we think of the name Deathroot, it's not just that it has the rune of death in it. It's not just the root of death. It is the death of the roots, how a plant achieves its sustenance. If we go to Summonwater Village, and this you have to go here before you go to the Round Table Hold. If you go here after you go to the Round Table Hold, you will miss D. This is secret dialogue. You have to walk up behind D and not talk to him. You have to just eavesdrop on him. And he will say a prayer to a dead person, where he goes, "At least you did not join those who live in death. Your soul will return to the Erdtree in time. Honeyed rays of gold, deliver this spirit." So this is what we're getting from this. How could we have the end of the golden age of the Erdtree? Well, because Godwyn is killed in the Night of Black Knives, and he's buried into the root system, Deathroot begins to spread, and it prevents souls from going to the Erdtree. So the Erdtree cannot feed itself on the dead. And if it can't feed itself on the dead, it can't produce sap. If it can't produce sap, well then now Godfrey has a problem because he's no longer in charge of a powerful tree. It's only an object of worship. So Godwyn is dead. Much of the golden lineage is dead. The tree is dying. And then we go to the border of Limgrave and Caelid, and what do we get? We get a sword monument that says, "Lord Godfrey, at the last of his campaign, his golden armies unvanquished and unbound, yet finds grace lost, tattered and faded." Who's Godfrey fighting in Limgrave? And why is it on the border of Caelid? He should have already controlled Limgrave at this point. Well, if we go a little bit further from Limgrave, and we go through Caelid, we'll find the Farum Great Bridge, and we'll get Farum Azula. This is lost beyond time, but at one point, it wasn't. In Farum Azula, you can find 2 Crucible Knights. One of those Crucible Knights is sitting over a dead ancient dragon, and another is fighting Farum Beastmen. From the Crucible Knight set, we know that they served Godfrey, first Elden Lord. So Godfrey's soldiers are in Farum Azula, and they're looking at dead ancient dragons, and they're fighting Farum Beastmen. We also find the malformed tree sentinels. This is the guy guarding Malekith's boss room. After you defeat him, you get his set that says, "After the great ancient dragon Grandsax attacked, the sentinels had an epiphany. The only way to truly protect the Erdtree was to become dragons themselves." So the people in Farum Azula, the Crucible Knights, and the Malformed Dragon Knights, these guys must have come here after the ancient dragons attacked the capital. Don't worry, this is all coming together. We can also find an incantation scare by an ancient dragon around the area where you fight Alexander. And this incantation scare will give you Golden Lightning Fortification, an incantation of Erdtree worship, not ancient Erdtree incantation. This is for just Erdtree worship. So people can worship the Erdtree after the Age of Plenty is over, after the Erdtree has died, after there's nothing left coming from the sap. This is just people worshiping it. You can worship it when it was producing sap, but we know that this incantation specifically is just worship. And it says, this incantation was used by the Knights of the Erdtree during the assault by the great ancient dragon Grandsax, and the bitter war of the ancient dragons that followed. So in Farum Azula, we have the incantation of an Erdtree worshipper who was fighting against ancient dragons. Why are they in Farum Azula? Well, if Godfrey was in Farum Azula with Malformed Dragon Knights, with Crucible Knights, why is he attacking the city? Well, the ancient dragons who attacked the capital started a war. But how did that war end? It ended, when we look at Lightning Spear, when Godwyn the Golden defeated ancient dragon Fortisax and befriended his fallen foe, an event that gave rise to the ancient dragon cult in the capital. Okay, so the war against the ancient dragons ends when Godwyn starts a cult. Now, I don't think I've seen much discussion on this. It's a cult. Think about what a cult is. I don't think I need to explain how cults operate, but they're not like, they're not, good. So the ancient dragons attack the capital, and Godwyn the Golden, who's supposed to be the heir of the golden lineage, he starts a cult worshiping them. Not worshiping the tree, worshiping the dragons. Some people think, and I think Scummage Info has a video on this, where the malformed dragon knights have a depiction as Godwyn as a dragon, where the top of the dragon's head is lion-like with a golden mane, and then he's got a fishtail, just like when he turns into the Prince of Death. So their only way to protect the Erdtree was to become dragons themselves. This is echoing the Banished Knights who do Dragon Communion, the Drake Knights who did Dragon Communion. It is a repetition of history, where ancient dragons convince people to become dragons themselves. And you might be saying, what about the Gravelstone Seal? Well, don't worry, we have answers for the Gravelstone Seal. So the Gravelstone Seal is a sacred seal made from Gravelstone, thought to be an ancient dragon scale. Enhances dragon cult incantations of the royal capital. The worship of the ancient dragons does not conflict with belief in the Erdtree. After all, the seal and lightning itself are both imbued with gold. Okay, so there's no problem here. Why does Godfrey have such a big gripe against the ancient dragons if worshipping them doesn't conflict with the Erdtree? It's both gold. Well, let's think about it this way. The ancient dragons attack the capital, and Godwyn starts a cult. We look at the Dragon Cult prayer book of the capital's ancient dragon cult, a text of the Knights' faith that arose after the War of the Ancient Dragons. So it's the Knights' faith. It's the military. It is the Erdtree's military force. They are beginning to worship the faction that attacked their city. In their city, we now essentially have two monuments of worship. The Erdtree, which is supposed to be producing dew and sap, and Grandsax. We can get gravelstone clumps from Grandsax's body still within the capital. And with those things, we can make things like ancient dragon bolt pots, allows one to wield ancient drake lightning regardless of faith. The residual power of relics is purely a natural phenomenon. So in the capital, we have two objects of worship, and both of them can produce power. One is producing gravelstone, which could be used as a way to channel lightning incantations, as well as create materials such as bombs. And we have the Erdtree, which is supposed to be producing dew and sap that can invigorate people. But what happens after the Night of Black Knives, after Deathroot starts spreading? Well, now the Erdtree is dying, and now we have two monuments of worship. The tree that isn't producing any sap, it's just for worship. And we have Grandsax, still in the city, still where he attacked. Think of all the people he killed, but his body is still producing gravelstone. So out of these two objects, one of them is still a source of power and the other isn't. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. Because when we go to Farum Azula, we can see why Godfrey might have been a little miffed at this whole cult that Godwyn formed. Because we can find the Ancient Dragon prayer book of the capital's ancient dragon cult, a lost tome that never reached the lands between, contains red lightning incantation. Well, now, wait a minute. The Gravelstone Seal told us that the worship of ancient dragons does not conflict with belief in the Erdtree because the seal and lightning itself are both imbued with gold. But now we have the secret, now we have the lost tome that never reached the land between that contains red lightning incantations. And we look at one of those red lightning incantations, and we get Ancient Dragon's Lightning Spear, a secret incantation of the capital's ancient dragon cult. Creates a spear of red lightning and stabs it into the ground from above. Spoken of in legend, red lightning is the weapon wielded by the ancient dragons. So the dragons attack the capital, and they don't win. Oh no. Godwyn the Golden was so tough and so strong. How could we have ever predicted this? We could not beat Godwyn the Golden. And then a cult arises from their defeat, and with that cult, they win the hearts and minds of Leyndell's military. And then eventually, the Erdtree dies. It starts dying, and it's not producing dew and sap. And now the military, instead of getting their power from the Erdtree, now they're getting their power from the ancient dragons. The ancient dragons are nigh on immortal beings. Do you think they were really just trying to get a militaristic victory over over Leyndell? Or are they playing the long game, trying to get their military to switch to their side? We also find within Farum Azula Deathroot. And Deathroot can only spread through the Great Tree root system. So Farum Azula must have been connected to the rest of the lands between after the Night of the Black Knives, and it must have been connected long enough for Deathroot to spread all the way from the base of the Erdtree's root system and the Great Tree's root system to spread to Farum Azula. What else do we find in Farum Azula? Well, we find throughout all of the lands between those who live in death, and many of those who live in death carry the Sun Realm shield. When we get to Farum Azula, we find beastmen who live in death carrying the Sun Realm shield. Shield of honor depicting a city crowned by the sun, it has seen better days. Much like a wear upon the shield, the seat of the sun is long faded away. So Godfrey, if we're thinking from Godfrey's perspective, he is the king of the golden Erdtree that gives light to all the lands night and day. What ruled before the big glowing tree? The sun. And now, after Godwyn dies, the people coming back to life are all people part of the Sun Realm. So we're getting a little bit of a problem here. Not only is his Erdtree dying, not only is it not producing sap, enemies and soldiers from a previous war are coming back to life and really ruining his vibes. Godfrey probably also saw some things in Farum Azula he wasn't supposed to see, but we don't have time to go over that right now. So Godfrey leaves Caelid. He leaves Caelid, and he comes to Limgrave, and we get the sword monument. Lord Godfrey, at last, at the end of his campaign, his golden armies unvanquished and unbowed, yet finds grace lost, tattered and faded. So he won in Farum Azula. He's a big boy. Congratulations. But what's his reward? Well, we go down to the Third Church America, just a few steps away, and we get an echo of America that says, "My Lord and thy warriors, I divest each of thee of thy grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between. Ye will wage war in a land afar, where ye will live and die." So America says to Godfrey, "Great job. After Godwyn was dead, great job going to Farum Azula and fighting all those ancient dragons. But I'm going to take grace away from you now, and you're going to have to get the hell out of here, pack your bags, and you're going to die. Go fight somewhere else and die." But then we go a little bit further, we get to the Church of Pilgrimage, and we get the rest of the plan. "Then, after thy death, I will give back what I once claimed. Return to the lands between, wage war, and brandish the Elden Ring. Grow strong in the face of death, warriors of my Lord, Lord Godfrey." So America's saying to Godfrey, don't worry, I have a plan. Everything is looking bad right now, but you go somewhere else, you're going to die. Go fight, get strong. Then come back and you'll be Elden Lord again. All right, I got something to work up. I'm cooking up something. America's saying, I'm cooking. Let me cook. So Godfrey is banished. And where do we get that echo of America? Get at the Church of Pilgrimage. And what statue do we have at the Church of Pilgrimage? We have a statue of Radagon. That's right. The Elden Throne is under new management, everybody. Godwyn, dead. Golden lineage, decimated. Erdtree, dying. It's time for the Age of Radagon. Get the hell out of here, Godfrey. There's a new guy in town. And the new guy happens to also be your wife. We go to Muriel. Muriel, he says, when Godfrey, first Elden Lord, was hounded from the lands between, Radagon left Rennala to return to the Erdtree capital, becoming Queen Marika's second husband and consort, taking the title of Elden Lord. Second Elden Lord. Now, let's think about this. After he becomes the second Elden Lord, Rennala and Radagon's children, such as Radahn, Rykard, and Ranni, become demigod stepchildren in this union. So the Carian kids have their station within the Lands Between increases. First, they were just the children of the Carians of this royal family who had control of Liurnia. Now their father is the Elden Lord, and they become demigods. They are on equal playing fields. They're on equal political terms with someone like Godwyn. What's interesting about this is, who did the Knight of the Black Knives? Ranni the Witch, daughter of Radagon and Rennala. From the Blasphemous Blade, we learn that Rykard was involved. When we look at Rykard's abductor virgins, we find them in Railucaria, Caria Manor, we find them in Redmane Castle, we find them throughout Caelid, fighting the giant dogs, helping Radahn. So Rykard, Radahn, and Ranni are all in an alliance as siblings, and now they've been escalated to demigod status. When we fix the timeline in this way, we start to see what type of political intrigue is going on. Because the Knight of the Black Knives isn't just Ranni trying to free herself of her flesh so the fingers can't control her. We have a political assassination that is informed by a group of people whose descendancies comes from Rennala and moon worship and the mountaintops and the astrologers. We have one of them who aspires to be Elden Lord because he emulates Godfrey and his father Radagon. We have another who is a worshiper of the Great Serpent and a blasphemous religion. And then we have Ranni, who's trying to do the Dark Moon ending and break away from the fingers. So we have three people who have to gain from the death of Godwyn and the banishment of Godfrey. It's very interesting when we start looking at the story from this perspective of why people would do the things that they do in order to gain more power. So Radagon is Elden Lord now, and he has a lot of problems on his plate. Tree Empire doesn't have a tree. The original founder, he's gone. Many of its royal family is gone. We don't even want to talk about the political mess that is Shadow of the Erdtree and the Crusades going on. We don't want to talk about the economic issues without any dew and sap being produced. How does that affect the rune economy? You can watch this previous video about a little bit of insight into the rune economy. But most of all, we have an epidemic of dead people coming back to life and causing trouble. Deathroot isn't just killing the Erdtree, it's also bringing back those who live in death. So we have a solution, though. We have a solution. We look at Radagon's statues, and he's in his T-pose. He's showing that he's a Golden Order fundamentalist, and he is feeling totality. If we look at Litany of Proper Death, which is in the same pose of Radagon, one of the incantations of the Golden Order fundamentalist, used by hunters of those who live in death, creates an image of order. This incantation is especially damaging by those who live in death. Any felled by this incantation cannot be revived. The role of the hunters is to stamp out defiled reason, all for the perfection of the Golden Order. Then we look at the Golden Order seal, and if you're interested, I already have a video about the secret echoes of Radagon where we talk about the origins of Golden Order fundamentalism. It's a formless sacred seal depicting the ceremonial observations of order. Fundamentalism is scholarship in all but name, scales incantations with both intelligence and faith. And we got law of causality, we got the law of regression, we got order healing. But we don't have any tree stuff. Golden Order fundamentalists, they are not interested in the Erdtree. They're interested in the fundamentals of the Golden Order, which comes from the Elden Ring. Order is defined by the Elden Ring. It's not defined by the Erdtree. So with the Erdtree becoming a mere object of faith, this scholarship and this worship starts looking at the Elden Ring, to start looking at the source of the Erdtree. If Godfrey's age is the age of the Erdtree, if he is the Lord of the Erdtree, what is Radagon's age? Well, Gowry has that answer for us. You go to Caelid and you start doing Gowry's quest. You start working with him to manipulate Millicent to get her to the Haligtree so he can create another Scarlet Valkyrie. You start manipulating her. You do the secrets of Celia, and he will tell you Queen Marika and her king consort Radagon were blessed with twin demigods, and Melania is one of them. She was born an Empyrean carrying the Scarlet Rot. An Empyrean is no mere demigod. In the age of the Elden Ring and Queen Marika, the precious Empyrean was born. So we have a very clear timeline here. We have the beginning of the Erdtree. It starts with the mountaintops of the giants and fighting the fire giants. Then, during the age of the Erdtree, we get the Knight of the Black Knives. where Godwyn the Golden and the rest of the Golden lineage gets decimated. That leads to Deathroot. Deathroot spreads and it kills the Erdtree, and it provokes Godfrey to retaliate against the ancient dragons because of their formation of this cult at Farum Azula. Then he is banished. After he is banished, Radagon becomes the Elden Lord, and when Radagon is the Elden Lord with Queen Marika, they have Miquella and Malenia as their children. So this is a very clear timeline of events by looking at the information presented to us in-game. Now I know what you might be saying. What about the Golden Epitaph sword? Well, don't worry. We'll talk about the Golden Epitaph sword. So it's a sword made to commemorate the death of Godwyn the Golden, the first of the demigods to die, and infused with the humble prayer of a young boy, "O brother, Lord brother, please die a true death." People take this item and they say, well, since Miquella, and we know it's Miquella because the Ash of War shows the Haligtree symbol, we know that Miquella knows Godwyn because he's praying for him. No one has ever prayed for anyone that they've never known ever. That has never happened before. No time in history has anyone prayed for someone who's died that they've never met before. So Miquella must have known Godwyn. Those are the arguments I hear. However, we look at the Golden Epitaph, and we see at the top is a corpse in the pose of totality. It's showing a Golden Order fundamentalist pose. If we think about why would a Golden Order fundamentalist be praying for their Lord brother to die a true death? Well, if Miquella is born in the age of the Elden Ring, when the Erdtree is dying and there's zombies popping up and everything sucks, well, perhaps he would want the source of Deathroot to be laid to rest. Because where is Deathroot coming from? It's coming from Godwyn's corpse buried into the Erdtree roots. So if we can put Godwyn to rest, maybe we can fix all these problems. Especially one of those big problems is that his sister is born with scarlet rot. Miquella is born in a time where not only the lands between is suffering, but his sister has been suffering since birth. And the Erdtree is not producing its dew and sap anymore. So if we think from the perspective of Miquella, who was born after the golden age of the Erdtree, he might be thinking, well, the only way to fix my sister is to solve the problems of the world today so we can get the Erdtree back to the way it has to be, and that will help her. We go back to Litany of Proper Death. The Golden Order fundamentalists, they're trying to stamp out defiled reason, all for the protection of the Golden Order. And at this time, Miquella is a Golden Order fundamentalist. We have a Discus of Light. This is a gift from the young Miquella to his father Radagon. So Miquella is giving gifts to his father about Golden Order fundamentalism. He's trying to learn about the Golden Order almost alongside his father, because they both live in this fractured world that they both want to fix. We go back to the Golden Epitaph sword, and its skill is Last Rites. Raise the epitaph to grant the effect of sacred order to yourself and allies in the vicinity, particularly effective at laying to rest those who live in death. So why would we want to lay those to rest who live in death? Well, Godwyn is the biggest guy who's living in death, and we want to be able to put him to rest so we can end the spreading of Deathroot. Now, what's interesting about this, the Golden Epitaph, it's not this humble prayer. It's the Ash of War. Because even though this does Sacred Order, which is supposed to be a Golden Order fundamentalist skill, we don't get the Golden Order fundamentalist sigil. We get the Haligtree symbol. And if we go into the DLC and we go into the Stone Fisher, we get the multi-layered Rings of Light, which is an incantation of those who serve Miquella, which uses the Haligtree symbol, and it said this light ring incantation was cultivated by a tradition separate from Golden Order fundamentalism. So not only was Miquella a Golden Order fundamentalist, but he was studying it in a way that it diverges separately from Golden Order fundamentalism. It creates new Rings of Light that are not the discus, they're not the triple rings. And you get multi-layered Rings of Light from the only Leonine misbegotten within Shadow of the Erdtree. That is so interesting, but we're not ready to talk about that yet, because you guys still think Miquella and Godwyn know each other. So Miquella is a Golden Order fundamentalist. He's giving his father Discus of Light, he's giving him triple Rings of Light, and in return, Radagon makes Radagon's Rings of Light. One of the incantations of Golden Order fundamentalism, a gift of gratitude to the young Miquella from his father Radagon. So why would Radagon have gratitude to his son? Perhaps it was because of Discus of Light and Triple Rings of Light. Miquella gave his father this insight into the Golden Order, and in return, Radagon's like, thank you, my son. You have shown me from a new perspective. Let's think about Radagon as a person. Radagon is going to war in Liurnia. He is an Erdtree worshiper. Then he becomes a scholar and a sorcerer. Then he studies incantations. He has all of this life experience of seeing the world through his eyes. And then his son, who has a different perspective, who has grown up in a different time, who doesn't know the Erdtree like Radagon knows the Erdtree. He gives him insight into the Golden Order that he couldn't get on his own because it came through the eyes of a child who was born into a world of suffering, who was born with a twin sister who's hurting. So Radagon in return gives Miquella these rings, his own rings, and says, thank you, my son, for giving me this insight, giving me this perspective. And yet, as the item reads, the young Miquella abandoned fundamentalism, for it could do nothing to treat Malenia's accursed rot. This was the beginning of unalloyed gold. So Miquella abandons Golden Order fundamentalism, not because of Godwyn. Nothing to do with Godwyn. Has to do with Malenia. No, Miquella could not put Godwyn, he couldn't lay him to rest with the Golden Epitaph sword. And he doesn't abandon Golden Order fundamentalism because, I couldn't kill Godwyn. He abandons Golden Order fundamentalism because of Malenia, because of his sister, the person he cares about the most. So, let's go to Castle Sol. Castle Sol is a place where people think Miquella was working to resurrect Godwyn. Now, hindsight's 2020, we know that's not true. We know that isn't the case. You played Shadow of the Erdtree, you know who the final boss was. Not a retcon, everybody. You were just wrong. And it's okay to be wrong. Me, I wasn't wrong. I've never been punished in my life. I wasn't wrong. I got so many videos telling you all how the eclipse wasn't going to happen. That was a little catty. Let's rewind. Hi, I'm Jack. Sorry for saying you were wrong. It's okay to be wrong. I'm wrong sometimes too. You'll let me know in the comments where I'm wrong in this video, won't you? Please do. So we get to Castle Sol. And in Castle Sol, we have the Church of the Eclipse. The Church of the Eclipse, we have a ghost praying, "O great sun, frigid son of Sol, surrender yourself to the eclipse. Grant life to the soulless bones." Now, this is where people were thinking, okay, they want to resurrect Godwyn. We got the Eclipse Hotel here. It's got the Prince of Death's flames, the Church of the Eclipse. This is to resurrect Godwyn. But here's the problem. Here's the problem. Don't take this literally. Don't take this literally. If we look at the Eclipse Crest Great Shield, the Eclipse Sun, drained of color, is the protective star of soulless demigods. It aids the Mausoleum Knights by keeping destined death at bay. Why should we not take this literally? Because it's a prophecy. It's not an actual eclipse. It's the symbolism of events to come in the future that are reflected by how people perceive the world. Prophecy is one of the major pillars for understanding Elden Ring. The idea that people can know the future and will do things to try and get that future to happen or to prevent that future from happening without fully understanding what that future is. We see this right out of the gate. When you create a character, you can choose the prophet class, who is punished for seeing prophecies. And what prophecy are they punished for? Seeing the sinister prophecy of the flame of ruin. That is the anathema to the Erdtree. But prophets sometimes glimpse it within the flame, within the faith all the same. Sadly, when this occurs, their sole reward is punishment. We look at fire's deadly sin. The prophet despaired, looking up at the Erdtree, for soon the kindling would burst into flame, bring ruin. How do we know that prophecy is being misinterpreted as symbols? Well, we can look at the Candle Tree wooden shield. A tall, medium-sized wooden shield, light for its size and easy to handle, thought to represent a surreptitious prophecy of cardinal sin. The lit candle tree design was forbidden. So when people see prophecies of burning the Erdtree, they don't see the Erdtree on fire. They see a candle tree. They see symbols that they interpret. Now, prophecy is all over Elden Ring. It's all over the place, and that would have to be a separate video. But for example, you go down into the ancient dynasty, and you see statues of a Moses-like figure. Moses, who is a prophet of God. We have this guy with a long beard holding 2 tablets, just like Moses. Who else do we find in the ancient dynasty? Well, we can find the claymen. And the claymen are artificial people. They're made of clay. They are bowed with age. These spirits are sluggish and hard to stagger. The warped remains of priests who search for revelations in search of the ancient dynasty. They employ 2 sorceries that produce smaller and larger bubbles. So in the ancient dynasty, deep below the lands between, before the age of the Erdtree, before the Erdtree even existed, we have a Moses-like figure getting prophecies and revelations from claymen, fake people. What do these bubbles say that these priests searching for revelations are trying to get? The claymen search for lost oracles within their bubbles. So in their bubbles, the claymen are searching for oracles to tell them the future. Where do we find oracles? Well, we can get the oracle envoy ashes from the Haligtree. Spirits of a monstrous band of musicians who employ sacred arts. It is said that when the oracle envoys appear playing their pipes, they do so to herald the arrival of a new god or a new age. These guys are playing their pipes at the Erdtree and the Haligtree, a group that is predicting the future. Also at the Haligtree, we find candle trees. Another interesting note is, isn't it kind of funny that the sigil for the night sorceries and the bubbles that are from the claymen looks very similar to the Carian sigil, and that it's Ronnie, who's a Carian, who has the Night of the Black Knives happen. Anyway, back to the eclipse. So if we're thinking of the eclipse as a prophecy, if we're thinking of it as what people would interpret to be an eclipse, how do you make an eclipse? Well, you need the sun and the moon. The moon has to go in front of the sun and drain it of color. Well, if we're thinking of making the sun go dark, well, we should start thinking about moons. There's 3 moons in the game. We have the black moon, we have the full moon, and we have Ronnie's cold, dark, occult moon veiled in mystery. If we go to the guy praying at the Church of the Eclipse, what does he say? "O great sun, frigid sun of soul, surrender yourself to the eclipse." Okay, so it's a frigid sun. It's a cold sun. So when we're thinking about which moon could be eclipsing the sun, we should go with the only cold moon there is. That's Ronnie's dark moon. Ronnie's dark moon is the only cold moon, so that should be the cold moon that will make a frigid sun. What would be the sun? Well, we're not thinking literally, we're thinking prophetically. Godwyn the Golden is the golden sun. He's the golden child, but he is also known for wielding golden lightning. We look at the death lightning spell. It is said that this golden lightning was wielded by Godwyn, who befriended Fortisax. We go to the Death Knights, and the Death Knights, they have helmets that look like a sun as a crown. The decayed golden wield that adorns it represents their unbroken loyalty to Godwyn, he who became the Prince of Death. So if Ronnie is the moon, is Godwyn the sun? Well, so far we have golden lightning, and we have this wheel on the Death Knight's helms that kind of looks like a sun. If we go back to Dark Souls, and we look at how lightning is used within the symbology of Miyazaki's games, we have Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight, whose weapon of choice is golden lightning bolts. We have Gwyn's son, the Nameless King, who befriends the dragons in their war against the dragons, and he also uses golden lightning. So if we're thinking of cold, if we're thinking of an eclipse, we might start thinking of Ronnie's cold dark moon being the moon blocking the sun, and the sun being Godwyn, represented with all this golden lightning, making ice lightning. Ice lightning you can find in the Eternal Cities with all their Dragonkin soldiers. Neither here nor there. So what would that eclipse be? If it's Ronnie and Godwyn, what would that eclipse actually be? Well, it could be the Night of Black Knives, because Godwyn the Golden and the Golden lineage aren't the only people who died during the Night of Black Knives. We have the curse mark of death. This curse mark was carved at the moment of death of the first demigod and should have taken the shape of a circle. However, 2 demigods perished at the same time, breaking the curse mark into 2 half wheels. Ronnie was the first of the demigods who perished in flesh, while the Prince of Death perished in soul alone. So if the eclipse is a prophecy for the Night of Black Knives, we get Godwyn the Golden as the sun, being eclipsed by Rani the Dark Moon. Godwyn was supposed to die with a full wheel, curse mark wheel. Instead, it's broken in two because Rani interrupts it by killing her flesh. How do we know that could be a prophecy? If you go to the Deeproot Depths and you talk to the finger reader there, she will say, "Oh, Lord Godwyn, such cruelty, such humiliation. My poor sweet lordling should have died a true death, as the first of the demigods to die, as a martyr to destined death." So Godwyn was going to martyr himself for destined death. But why would he try to do that? If he's trying to follow a prophecy where his death would lead to perhaps a resurrection, his true death leading to a resurrection. So Godwyn was trying to martyr himself for destined death. I want you to think about how you perceived Elden Ring's story, that you thought, perhaps you thought, Godwyn was supposed to come back and shatter the Erdtree. That may have been exactly like the people within the lands between. They saw a prophecy, and they thought something was going to happen, but they misread it. So us as a community who have been enjoying this piece of art and trying to dissect it, us being wrong about something is reflective of the characters in the story also being wrong. And that's great. That's fun. This is exciting. When we think about when we get our information in Elden Ring, we have to think about when we get it, where it comes from, and what is that information. And when we got information about Godwyn, many people were assuming that it was accurate information, but it's coming from people who do not have a perfect understanding of the world. So Godwyn the Golden is representative of like Gwyn, the Nameless King, this Lord of Sunlight. However, he dies and he transforms. He is kind of resurrected. He transforms into the Prince of Death. He goes from Godwyn, kind of being a Gwyn and Nameless King parallel, to the first of the dead of the demigods. And with that comes these basilisks. Now, if you're familiar with Dark Souls, who are these basilisks associated with? Nito, first of the dead. In order to upgrade yourself in his covenant, you have to get the eyes of death from the basilisks. So Godwyn essentially has a transformation. He is kind of resurrected. The prophecy is fulfilled. He dies as Godwyn the Golden, and he's transformed into the Prince of Death. He goes from Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight, to Nito, first of the dead. We go back to that prayer again. Let's start thinking about it as a prophecy. O great sun, frigid son of soul, surrender yourself to the eclipse. So if we think as the sun is Godwyn, surrender yourself to the eclipse, surrender yourself to Rani and what she's going to do. Grant life to the soulless bones. Now, if you thought that was supposed to be, we have to bring Godwyn back to life because he is soul dead, think about it, what actually happens in the game. After Godwyn dies, after the Night of the Black Knives, we get Deathroot. And with Deathroot, we get those who live in death. Soulless bones had been granted life. The prophecy was fulfilled. We also see the symbolism of the prophecy within the boss fights. Commander Nile will attack with golden lightning and icy storms, just like Rani's cold dark moon and Godwyn's golden sun. Castle Sol is the castle of the sun. It's associated with the Sun Realm. It's got the Banished Knights who participate in Dragon Communion. And who comes back to life after Deathroot spreads? All the Sun Realm soldiers. Now, this was from the perspective of people who have a culture associated with Farum Azula on the eastern side of the Lands Between. But on the western side of the Lands Between, they have the same exact prophecy, but it looks different to them because their perspective of the world is different. Farm culture and Sun Realm culture is mostly to do with sun symbolism and sun imagery. But in the Hornsent culture, they look at crucible imagery. They look at animals and divine beasts and lions. If we look at the divine beast dancing lion, we see a divine beast, which is a lion made of two people that has horns, blonde hair. Perhaps to the Hornsent, in their prophecy, they saw this child of God. They saw the child of Godfrey, who had Sirach on his back, being Godwyn, who's represented as the golden lineage is represented by Sirach, this golden lion. The Divine Beast, the first Divine Beast you fight, will cast 3 different storm spells. Regular storm spells, Ice Storm, and Lightning. We're getting ice and lightning again. We're getting the frigid sun symbolism again, but it's coming from a different point of view. The second Divine Beast you fight actually summons Deathblight and the Basilisks. So to them, this could have been the Knight of the Black Knives, but it's being interpreted from a different culture. Instead of it being a sun being eclipsed by a cold, dark moon, it's instead 2 people coming together, ice and lightning coming together, creating Deathblight. And with this prophecy, we get the Knight of the Black Knives, which leads into the shattering of the Elden Ring, and thanks to the shattering of the Elden Ring, all the events that transpire that lead to Miquella becoming a god who is on the back of the Red Lion of Dawn with gold hair coming from his shoulders. And he looks just like the Elden Ring found in Farum Azula, and he looks kind of like the Divine Beast Dancing Lion. And Radagon is only the Red Lion because he was emulating Godfrey, who had Siraj on his back. And wow, isn't that crazy? Anyway, back to Castle Sol. So Castle Sol, sorry, that was out of left field, wasn't it? You all thought that this was a retcon. Now it's been planned from the beginning, everybody. All right, so you go back to Castle Sol. We got the Banished Knights. We got the Sun Realm. They're worshiping the Ancient Dragons. We got the guy praying, oh sun, frigid sun, soulless bones. And then we have the Eclipse Hotel. The Eclipse Hotel is a storied sword and treasure of Castle Sol that depicts an eclipsed sun drained of color. In Sol, the sight of an eclipse inspires dreadful awe, preventing an onlooker from averting his gaze. So, eclipses have happened before. They're a natural phenomenon that can just happen within nature. So, when an eclipse happened at Castle Sol, these people are part of this eclipse cult, we could say, because the Church of the Eclipse only is in Castle Sol. They could see an eclipse and they thought, today's going to be the day, this is when soulless bones will be granted life. But they were misreading a prophecy. Since this is a storied sword and treasure of Castle Sol, this could indicate that they were planning for this long before Godwyn was even alive. This could indicate a longer history of people trying to enact a prophecy way before it was even thought of who it was going to be. Who was going to be our martyr. When you use its special item, Death Flare, or special skill, Death Flare, it sets the lusterless sun ablaze with the Prince of Death's flame, inflicting the death ailment upon foes. So this is what's interesting. It has the Prince of Death's flame. Doesn't have anything to do with Godwyn. It has the Prince of Death's flame. So Castle Sol was looking for their Prince of Death. Not their Godwyn the Golden, but their Prince of Death. When we go back to the Eclipse Crest Great Shield, it says that the Eclipse Sun is a protective star that aids the Mausoleum Knights by keeping destined death at bay. Now think about this prophetically. Is destined death kept at bay in the eclipse? During the Night of Black Knives, is destined death kept at bay? Yes, it is. Although Ranni and Godwyn both die in the Night of the Black Knives, they don't die complete true deaths. Destined death was kept at bay because they died at the same time. Their destinies and their fates were broken into 2. Destined death was kept at bay because Ranni only died in flesh and Godwyn died in soul. They didn't get their true death. Without the eclipse, without them dying at the same exact time, we wouldn't have Deathroot. And without Deathroot, life would not have been granted to the soulless bones. We wouldn't have those who live in death, and we wouldn't been able to fulfill the prophecy shown in the Eclipse Hotel. But that's the first ghost in Castle Sol. Let's go to the next ghost. Our next ghost. This guy shouts out Miquella immediately. Lord Miquella, forgive me. The sun has not been swallowed. Our prayers are lacking. Okay, so this guy thinks an eclipse is literal, but you and I, we're both on the same page right now. We know it's a prophecy. It's not literal. Your comrade remains soulless. Who is the comrade? They don't give a name. If there is no name, we have to deduce who it could be. Is it Godwyn? It could be Godwyn, but it doesn't say Godwyn. So we have to deduce who it could be. Well, outside of Castle Sol is a wandering mausoleum. And from a ghost in the Weeping Peninsula at the Church of Pilgrimage, where we learn that, Marika's plan to kick Godfrey out and Radagon's going to become Elden Lord, we get the mausoleum prows cradling the soulless demigod, Okay, so inside the mausoleums are soulless demigods. These soulless demigods on the coffins, they don't have heads. They have no identities. They are headless corpses. They don't have a face. They don't have a brain. No identity. In those mausoleums, you can duplicate remembrances. Specifically, in the ones with bells, you can duplicate the remembrances of demigods. In the intro cutscene, we can hear a mausoleum's bell tolling. And before your Tarnish is resurrected, a piece of grace enters their palm. Every single Tarnished that starts the game, every single player will have this item in their inventory, regardless of who you choose as your starting class. It will be the Memory of Grace, the Memory of First Grace, which once guided bygone Tarnished to lands between, it is merely a cycle, stand before the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord. Inside Castle Sol, we have someone who's saying that your comrade remains soulless. They don't say how he became soulless or how that comrade was soulless, just that they are soulless. There is no soul within the body. Outside is the Wandering Mausoleum, which it's tolling its bell, and inside you can duplicate memories. Then in the intro cutscene, we hear a mausoleum bell, and then the Memory of Grace enters their palm and they're resurrected. Their Tarnish, your Tarnish that you play as, is not soulless anymore. Whose soul do they have? Well, I think it's your soul. You're the one who controls them. It must be you. When you start the game, where do you begin? At the Chapel of Anticipation. The Chapel of Anticipation is shown in the prophecy painting. And what's the big prophecy that's going around? The burning of the Erdtree, which is represented by a lit candle tree. And then after your Tarnish dies, who do they get chosen by? Torrent, the spectral steed who brings you to Melina. And what's so interesting about Torrent, why would he choose your Tarnished? If we look at the concept art for Shadow of the Erdtree, we see Miquella riding on Torrent. And when you do the Forager Brood questline, you get Forager Brood Cookbook 7, a record of crafting techniques left by non-human Forager Brood, shared out of the kindness towards their savior, whose name was unknown. In that, you can learn how to craft spirit raisins, which is a bitter medicine traditionally claimed to enhance one's spirituality, but Torrent has a taste for it. So in this cookbook, you can make something that Torrent likes. What else can you get from this cookbook? Miquella's Charming Branch. Branch blessed with an incantation of unalloyed gold. Those who would otherwise be at each other's throats are united in service to Miquella as long as the charm that binds them remains intact. After you get to the Divine Gate, after you burn the Sealing Tree, after you slay Mesmer the Impaler and get his kindling, Miquella will say, "My loyal blade and champion of the festival." Well, who's his loyal blade? Well, that's Malenia, Blade of Miquella. And who's the champion of the festival? You're the champion of the festival. You are the guy or gal who controlled the Tarnished, who gave the Tarnished their soul, who slayed Radagon and made Miquella's plan happen. Not Godwin. Well, not directly. It was you. But he didn't do it. Ronnie did it. Anyway, we got to go to the Haligtree, because that's where the statue is. And everybody says that statue's Godwin the Golden. We haven't even gotten to the statue yet. But before we can get to the statue, we got to go back to Castle Sol, because Castle Sol has the left half of the Haligtree secret medallion. Uh-oh, got a problem. We need the other half of the secret medallion. So we got to go down to Liurnia, we got to go to Old Albus, he's hiding in a pot, and we got to get the right half of the secret medallion. Now, this is interesting. How does he have the right half of the secret medallion? Well, if we go to Latenna, she will say, "I must go back. There's something I must do, even if I must say farewell to my wolf, Lobo. Will you show me the way to the land of Miquella's Haligtree? If you accept, I will gladly apprise you of the whereabouts of the medallion's other half." So Latenna, the Albinauric made by human hands, has to go back to the Haligtree. So she came from the Haligtree, and she knows she knows that the other half of the medallion is at Castle Sol. So Castle Sol, who wants to do an eclipse ritual, has one half of the medallion. Where's the other half? Well, it was in the Albinauric village. How did the Albinaurics get that medallion? Well, if we go to the Temple Quarter, we will find a dead female Albinauric. We'll also find Miquella's lilies pointing directly to that dead female Albinauric, and then to a chest. And in that chest is the Ice Rind hatchet, a hatchet with a frost-coated blade, one of the several gifts given by Castle Sol in the distant north. Who did Castle Sol give gifts to? And what were the other gifts? Well, Castle Sol has the other half of the secret medallion. So perhaps Castle Sol gave this half of the secret medallion to someone in Liurnia. Who would they give that gift to in Liurnia? Well, the skill on Ice-Rain Hatchet is Hoarfrost Stomp, and Hoarfrost Stomp is found outside Caria Manor. So Castle Sol gifted one half of the Haligtree secret medallion to the Carians. And it's a Carian who initiates the Knight of Black Knives, which is the Eclipse Prophecy. But wait a minute. Why does Albus the Albinoric have the half of the medallion if it was given to the Carians? Well, if you go to Volcano Manor, you will find a Albinoric who can cast Magic Downpour, which is a sorcery of the Carian royal family, said to have been taught by the Crystallians to mark a swearing of an old concord. So the Albinorics know Carian sorcery because they're allied with the Carians. Not only that, the Carians are allied with the Crystallians. We also know that they're allied with giants, dragons, and beasts. Holy moly, the Carians got a lot of alliances, and their daughter, the princess, Lunar Princess Rani, initiated the Knight of the Black Knives, which caused this all to happen. What a coincidence. Anyway, let's go to the Haligtree. We have two halves of our medallions, so we're going to go to the Haligtree. But on the way to the Haligtree, we have to go to the hidden path of the Haligtree. What's that? Do you feel it? That's right, the beast eye is quivering. The beast eye is quivering on the path to the Haligtree, to the path of the Haligtree after we use our secret medallions. And it's leading us into a catacombs. And in those catacombs, what do we find? Check the name of the channel. We find a stray mimic tear. We find a stray mimic tear guarding Deathroot on the path to the Haligtree. That's very interesting. What is a stray mimic tear doing here? Well, when we kill that stray mimic tear, they drop Black Flame Monk Aemon's ashes. Aemon swore fealty to the god-slaying Black Flame and became the first fire monk to turn traitor. Or perhaps it's better to say that he fled from the giant's flame out of cowardice. Now, why does a mimic tear have the ashes of the first fire monk to turn traitor to the Black Flame? Now, you may not have noticed this, but I thought it was weird that the Black Flame spell looks like an exact copy of Flame Sling. It's like almost one for one, except it's just drained of color. It's just somber. It's very similar to how Urba looks exactly like Dew-Kissed Urba. It's hard to tell the difference other than just the lack of color. And how Beast Blood kind of just looks like Albinoric blood clots. It's just missing that color. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're not talking about mimics. Why would we talk about mimics? Let's know who the fire monks are. So the fire monks are the guardians of the flame of ruin, that is forbidden by the Erdtree and said to be kept high in the mountaintops of the giants. So these are the guys protecting the fire that is part of this prophecy. If we look at Flame Protect Me, this is the most ancient of the Fire Monk's incantations. It is said that the incantation was used during the war against the giants long ago, during which it protected the champions of the Erdtree. So the Fire Monks are present during the beginning of the Age of the Erdtree, at the very beginning. Remember the beginning of the video where we talked about Godfrey fighting for the Erdtree, going to brandish the Elden Ring, going to fight the fire giants? These guys were there. These Fire Monks were there. From Surge O'Flammy, the giant's flame is the flame of ruin, capable of burning the Erdtree. And so, following the war against the giants, its ruinous blaze was sealed, and the guardians were appointed to watch over it. So the fire monks were there, at the war against the giants. After the war against the giants, during the age of the Erdtree, they are appointed as guardians. So Aemon, the first fire monk to betray the flame and go to the Black Flame, he must have seen the Black Flame as a guardian. During the war against the giants, or a little bit before war against giants, he has to have had interactions with the Black Flame for him to switch his allegiances from guarding the Flame of Ruin to becoming a Black Flame monk. So how would a fire monk know about the Black Flame? Well, up in the mountaintops of the giants, we can find the Spirit Calling Cave. In the Spirit Calling Cave, we find the spirits of wolves who died. We find spirits of samurai who died chasing after Okina. And we also find the spirit calling snails. But hey, these ain't snails. They're snakes. And in the boss fight, who do they summon? They summon the spirits of Godskins, of an apostle and a noble. And after we defeat them, what do we get from them? We get the Godskin swaddling cloth, the sacred cloth of the Godskin apostles made from supple skins sewn together. The gloam-eyed queen cradles newborn apostles swaddled in this cloth. Soon they will grow to become the death of the gods. We also get Black Flame Ritual. The gloam-eyed queen led the apostles. It is said that she was an Empyrean chosen by the Fingers. So from this cave, we learn that the gloam-eyed queen is growing apostles to become the death of the gods, and that she led the apostles. And we learn this in the mountaintops of the giants. This is where we get that information. So the information is telling us that most likely that these Godskins died because the gloam-eyed queen was leading them against gods to kill them. Well, what gods could she be killing? Well, if we go to Mount Gelmir controlled by Rykard, we find a Godskin noble. Isn't that fishy? That Rykard is allied with Godskins. There's also Black Flame monks. We can find Black Flame monks as well with a Godskin apostle in the Caelid Divine Tower. The Caelid Divine Tower also has Redmane knights there. So Radagon's knights are also allied with the Godskins. And when we go to the Liurnian Divine Tower, we can find a Godskin noble defending Ranni's body. So isn't it very interesting that all of these people who are associated with getting this rise in power are allied with the Godskins? Anyway, back at Mount Gelmir, when you defeat the Godskin noble, you get noble presents. Once a sign of the god's wrath, this incantation became a trophy of the noble's god hunt. So who are the gods that are hunting? What is this trophy? Well, the noble presence thrusts out the belly with gusto to produce a shockwave that knocks back foes. This move looks very similar to the Fire Giant's move at the beginning of his second phase, where he thrusts out his belly with gusto and starts spewing fire. The Fire Giant draws their power directly from the flame of the fell god. This legendary incantation is one of several that draws directly from the power of the Fire Giants, releases a ball of raging fire said to be inhabited by a fell god. Arganthony, the chief guardian of the flame, had kept this incantation a well-kept secret until it was stolen by Adon. The fell god still lurks within the Fire Giants. And when we go to the Firemong armor, we learn that the grotesque face sculpted on the chest is said to depict a corrupt ancient god of the flame. So how would Black Flame monk Aemon be the first fire monk to turn traitor? How would he have learned about the god-slaying Black Flame? Well, because during the war against the giants, the Godskins must have been there, and they must have been led by the gloam-eyed queen. They must have needed that black god-slaying flame to slay the god that lives inside of the Fire Giants. Thus, the Godskin nobles can have a trophy for their hunt, their god hunt. But we're not here to talk about the hidden path of the secret Haligtree. We're trying to get to the Haligtree. We're trying really hard to get to the Haligtree. And before we get to the Haligtree, we have to go through Ordina. Now, Ordina has a lot of cool stuff that we could talk about. We could talk about how Latenna's older sister, who gets the birthing droplet to birth new Albinoric women, is in a mirrored pose to Renala, who has the amber egg. We could talk about how we can find a dead Black Knife assassin, where we get the armor that says that the assassins that carried out the deeds of the Knight of Black Knives were all women, and rumored to be Newman, who had close ties with Marika herself. But we're not going to talk about that, because we have to get to the Haligtree. And once we get to the Haligtree, we can be given an award from Gideon. Gideon is trying to learn more about this world, and he will trade us secret knowledge. So when you get to the Haligtree, he will gift a secret right known only to him. So the reward for reaching the Haligtree is Black Flame's protection, a Black Flame incantation of the Godskin Apostles. This incantation also looks like an exact copy of Flame Protect Me, just like how the Black Flame Fireball looks like an exact copy of Flame Sling, and how Dew-Kissed Herba looks like an exact copy of Herba. We get Black Flame's protection, Black Flame incantation of Godskins Apostles. Summons black fire within. Fire within. Increasing physical damage negotiation. However, Sacred Flask and other such form of HP restoration are impaired. The apostles were all embraced by the Glowmite Queen, and the black flame was their armor within. So the apostles were all embraced by the Glowmite Queen. So we go through the Haligtree. We fight Loretta, who used to be a Carian knight. Now she's allied with Miquella. And what do we find? We find this statue. And this statue is of Miquella and Melania, the children of Marika and Radagon, being embraced. The apostles were all embraced by the Glowmite Queen. So who is embracing Miquella and Melania in the statue? That's right. It's none other than Godwyn the Golden. So, or is it the Glowmite Queen? What does the evidence say? What does it all say? Is this statue Godwyn the Golden? Or is it somebody else? Elden Ring is a story that is built on a complex political web from the mastermind behind Game of Thrones. It's complicated, it's messy, and this video has barely scratched the surface. Most lore videos that you watch or theorizing that you've read over the past few years has barely cracked what's going on because many people ignore prophecy. People in the story know the future. People in the story are trying to learn the future. And people in the story are trying to prevent them from learning it. Many of these characters come with a rich historical and cultural backgrounds that inform their worldview and their actions. They're driven by desire, power, love, and fear. When we look at this statue at the Haligtree, we have to recognize that there was a lot of buildup to this moment from a story perspective. Buildup that began all the way down in the Weeping Peninsula. There was so much we didn't even get to talk about. We didn't get to talk about Vagrim, the Raging Wolf, who carries the Godslayer Greatsword. We didn't talk about the Mimic's Veil, which is also known as Marika's Mischief. We didn't even talk about Malakath and his relationship with Marika and why he had to be a vessel for the Rune of Death. There are so many twists and turns and big reveals in Elden Ring, so the information that comes from late game areas should be treated that way. This statue being Godwyn, what is the reveal? What does it say? What do we actually learn by this statue being Godwyn? What does it do for the story? Now, if the statue is a Glowmite Queen, well, then we have to start looking at Marika the Eternal. We have to start looking at Melina. What are their goals? And how does your Tarnished fit into them? What was the story saying about her up until this point? And how does the meaning of this moment change when we learn about Mesmer, cradled in shadow and coiled in serpents? That will have to wait for a future video. If you like this video, consider watching the Mimic Commentary, my Lore Through Long Play Let's Play series, where you get to see this type of analysis through Elden Ring from start to finish. Oh, and one more thing. The reason why that statue isn't Godwyn is because do you really think Miquella would be abducted by Moog to share a bloody bedchamber with him so he can be sent to the Land of Shadow and remove pieces of his flesh and pieces of his body for Godwyn? Do you think a child would do all of that to be taken by a horned monster so he could be his consort for Godwyn? See you next time.
I'm eating everything now while the nightmare remains. A white flag, the wave in my brain activates that bright path to pave.